Will mirroring with an SSD improve read performance? If you use Windows 7 to mirror a volume across an SSD drive and a mechanical hard drive, will the read performance be similar to a single SSD drive? I.e., is Windows smart enough to read from them both and use the data that comes back first?
In my test with 2 conventional hard drives, read performance was as good as the fastest hard drive, but write performance was as bad as the slowest. Note the scales are different.
Disclaimer, it's really all theory for me. I've only played with RAID arrays once. This sounds like a really bad idea to me, as I understand things you want to have similar performance characteristics for drives mounted in RAID arrays. Maybe you wanted to mix a high-speed traditional drive's continuous read speed with an SSD's low seek times. If so, you might be interested in a hybrid drive, NB it doesn't stripe data, but it does try to intelligently cache. Is Windows smart enough to read from them both and use the data that comes back first? It doesn't quite work like that. The controller doesn't ask for the same information from both drives and then wait to see which comes back first. If you've got simple mirroring, RAID 1, then I'd imagine the controller will ask for 1/n of the total size wanted from each of n drives. For example, if you want to read 1024 kilobits from an array of 4 drives, I imagine the controller will ask drive 1 for the first 256 kilobits, drive 2 for the second, drive 3 for the third, and drive 4 for the last. The speed-up comes from 4 similarly performant drives delivering the data in parallel, so you'd expect total time to be quartered, with a little extra for overhead. Now if 3 of the drives are high performance, and 1 of the drives is dead slow, the slow drive's going to be the bottleneck. So if you marry an SSD and a traditional HD, you might end up with the worst of both worlds. Edit. I agree that in the simplest implementation, the slowest drive will be the bottleneck. However, there are some smarter RAID implementations out there. I'd like to know if Windows 7's implementation is smart enough to avoid that bottleneck. I'm not sure what you mean by avoid that bottleneck. What do you expect it to do? The performance gain comes from having drives performing reads in parallel. Now it depends what your usage patterns will be, but if you're performing lots of small reads, for example, your traditional HD might never finish seeking. I'm imagining an intelligent controller that doesn't just wait for the HD, but requests the same data from the SSD if it's sitting idle. Don't know if that's realistic. So you get normal SSD speeds and thrash your traditional HD. You can also expect your write speeds to be bottlenecked. So what's the point?
Windows 7 is support RAID 1 and it is work great for mirrored volumes. Read performance will be faster than single SSD drive because OS can use split seeks technology. In other words, OS can read data from both hard drives in parallel. Check wiki page about RAID for details.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.